Hello everyone, and we have a bit of a special feature today. We have the final of Battle Hardened from World Tour Singapore. Let's just jump in and have a look at the metagame. So Jason, the first thing that jumps out to me here, we do see a lot of Briar, but look at the numbers for Starvo and Chain. That's a little bit lower than I was expecting.
Yeah, it's quite a big drop, but at the same time, it's nice that you can actually look. You can play anything. Like look at all the heroes.
Yeah, one thing I was going to ask you about, that's actually a lot more Dash IO than I was necessarily expecting as well. I mean, that deck is very strong. Any thoughts on why that was played a little bit more in Living Legend?
Well, you get High Octane, which is a big card
True.
to go with Dash, and we see that Dash wasn't far off of being good in Living Legend. It was just being held back a tiny bit by Starburn Chain, and just putting Starburn Chain down a notch really showed what decks were that close to being viable.
Yeah, and like you say, it's really cool to see a whole bunch of different heroes featured in the metagame here. And looking all the way down, geez, we got 10, 15 different heroes. Got some Aurora in there, 2 Iras. I believe one of those made the final, spoiler alert. And let's go ahead and look at how the top 8 brackets played out. So looking at the top 8 as well, I'm just counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different heroes in the top 8. And we see moving all the way through to the grand finals, we had Naib playing Ira and David Lee on Briar. Now, I have to say, I was a little bit surprised to hear that Ira made the final. And that's no diss on Ira, but it was just a little bit unexpected to me.
I always thought Ira was going to do well. Maybe not for the first Living Legend after the bans, but needles are just quite a tough one to deal with, especially when you can retrieve them.
Yep, the retrieve mechanic from Hunted, a big contributor to that deck. And let's go ahead and have a look at the Briar Decklist here. Okay, so we have a look at this. Now, Jason, I just want to ask you straight up. See, I'm seeing at least three new cards from High Season here, Nimby. So tell me about why they're playing Nimby in this deck.
Yeah, well, traditionally, Briar used to play with Belittle, but not having to pay anything for the Nimby instead of running Belittle is much more efficient, because you want to start your turn without any resources, and you can immediately play the Nimby off your embodiment that you made the last turn.
That's true, and also I see the Skyward Serenade Skizik sort of combo in there, and being able to just either generate the embodiment of lightning from your hero ability or from this card, comboed up with the Nimby, fetch up the Nimblism. The other thing I've just having a look at this list, without being restricted by Belittle in a way, it lets you sort of open up the type of attacks you want to play. You know, sort of making sure you have to count to have all of these 3 attack or lower ones.
Yeah, the restriction on Nimby is a lot less for Briar. It's a lot less on the deck building, and all you need is Go Again, and we all know Briar accesses that quite well.
Yep, and just having a look, we see the sort of classic Channel Mount Heroic, a whole bunch of Earth Blues, and just a bunch of 0-4 good attacks. Anyway, let's move on and have a look at the Ira deck, which I'm very interested in. Okay, so, I mean, I'm just going to throw this over to you. I feel you're more of the expert in the deck than me, but one thing I just want to ask you right away, 9 up 6 and run. Walk me through that.
Yeah, well, immediately, this is a Zephyr Needle deck. There is no other weapon that you can play in this deck. There is just 3 Zephyr Needles, which we'll go on to the third one a bit later, but ever since Retrieve, Ira can just play these Zephyr Needles without the drawback of losing your needles and risk playing a long game without any weapons.
Yeah, and you mentioned Retrieve. I also see 6 copies to pick up the point here, so it's just very heavily focused on being able to go sort of needle, perhaps flick knives one, pick up another one, keep on needling.
Yeah, well, Retrieve was primarily balanced over 1 power weapons, but Zephyr Needle is a dagger and it can be retrieved. And the drawback of Zephyr Needle is just fully negated by having retrieve cards in your deck.
Yep, and we spoke about Belittle earlier not showing up in the Briar deck, but I'm seeing the Belittles and the Minnowisms show up in this deck here. Just really efficient, isn't it, to just go Belittle, pick up your blue and keep on going?
Yep, and we can see that the Zephyr Needles are so important that there's even Conceal Blade to bring up the 3rd Zephyr Needle, just really reiterating that bringing lots of needles is very important.
Yep, and just speaking of Living Legend generally, it's definitely been there's been a lot of renewed focus on Living Legend as a competitive format. So Living Legend is of course going to feature in the upcoming ProQuest season. It's going to be featured twice at World Tour Philadelphia at the Worlds. You know, it's going to be part of the World Championship. It's going to be at the Calling. So I'm really, really interested to see some of the top minds of the game come up with as we sort of move on through the season. And I know we'll be keeping a close eye on that internally as well. Okay, so we see David Lee on the left playing Briar, and Naib Mobassir playing Ira on the right. And the 5th and 6th seeds here, so it looks like Naib has the choice, and looks like he's chosen to go second.
Yeah, so this is just your classic aggro mirror. You want to be the one going second in a classic aggro mirror so that you can get the tempo first. Traditionally, you're not going to be able to deal much damage on turn 1, even though the Ira deck is not one of the worst aggro decks for the turn 1 play.
Okay, and we just have a look at the equipment setups. We see the Faceburger Toria Grasp, the Tunic and the Snapdragon Scalers over on the Briar side. And then if we have a look over at Naib's Ira equipment, we see the Blood Spatter Vest, the Tide Flippers for Arcane Barrier, Flick Knives, and Mask of Momentum. Okay, so David's going to kick things off by just making a rune chant here and passing back over to Naib.
Yep, so now we're going to see the first needle of the match, and here David has a choice of whether or not he wants to pop it and make it go to a graveyard, but then he does end up using free defense in order to do that, and that's on a weapon. If this was a harmonized Kodachi, overblocking for free would be pretty tragic.
Yep, and we see immediately that second needle coming in for 3. We see the Knives Out come down, giving the daggers +1, and a Flick Knives flicking away the first needle that was going to die anyway.
Yep, and notably, even though Knives Out does pump all of the needles, the previous needle, up to 3 power, it is a trigger. So once the 7 needles trigger, it will go to the graveyard.
Yep, so bam, just 5 damage right off the bat. Still plenty of resources left. And looks like going to come in with a beautiful copy of that promo snatch.
Yeah, so this Ira deck, it excels in like putting your opponent in spots where they have to defend, or else they're going to risk your hit triggers, and Needles play perfectly into this because Needles draw defense value to it, but then you have your Mask of Momentum, your Snatch, and all these on-hits.
Yep, and Naib picks up a card off the Snatch there, but not going to be able to use it too well, still at a card in hand. Now over on the Briar side, we see the Skyward Serenade immediately creating that Embodiment of Lightning, picking up the Skizik, and straight into the Nimby that we talked about earlier.
Yeah, this High Seas banger has just really gone in all of the aggressive deck, and Briar is probably one of the best decks at utilizing Nimby.
Yep, and the really cool thing here I like is when you pick up the Nimblism, that is now your second on-attack action for the turn, so you're going to create another Bottom of Lightning off the hero ability. Which of course as well will give that Skizik the extra 1 point of damage.
Yeah, so like Briar is just basically kind of like the living legend Aurora, but not having to use the resources in order to get the Embodiment of Lightning.
So okay, looks like that's just going to push through for some damage here, 3 damage plus the Rune Chant, followed up by the Scar for a Scar with Go again, dropping Naib down to 32.
Yep, so Naib has the luxury of actually not having to defend against many on-hit triggers. So unlike the Ira deck, Briar presents very little on-hits, Plunder Run being one of the few on-hits, and Naib can just choose which damage he wants to defend and doesn't have to worry about many different on-hits effects.
Okay, and interesting that, like, not concerned about maybe saving that Nimblism for later, just really wants to pump up that Skizik for max. Comes in for 10, and Naib just saying, no worries, like, I'll take 10, followed up by the Rosetta Thorn, and all of a sudden, Naib down to 18 life.
Yep, but Naib does have a 5-card hand with the Arsenal, and Naib can pressure a lot with both the 7 needles and just many attack action cards that will present on the Mask of Momentum on hits. So it'll be very key here to watch out on if that Mask of Momentum will hit this turn.
Do you think we're going to see a Retrieve coming up on this turn as well? Because I note there's only 1 needle available currently.
Yeah, so we didn't actually see the Arsenal card of Naib, but on your first turn, when you flick your needle so aggressively, you do want to Arsenal a Retrieve card, and we do know there is like 15 in his deck.
Yeah, but I did just see a pick up the point was revealed off the Belittle there. So Belittle going to go ahead and pick up that Blue Minnowism. Coming for 3 damage, still two resources up. And that needle's going to come in for 3. Now, walk me through, is the Embodiment of Earth somewhat important here?
Yeah, well, most decks can't actually defend a 7 needle for 4 to break it on the second chain link, but with Embodiment of Earth, Briar can actually just block with any defend-free non-attack action cards. Let's see if he has one right now.
Yep, and chooses not to block there. Naib's going to go ahead and pick up the resource off the Bloodspatter Vest, and was also going to go ahead and pick up another Zephyr Needle off that pick up the point here. So now we start to see the power. 3 into 3 into 3. There's still a needle coming, still 2 cards in hand and a card in arsenal. And this one is threatening Mask of Momentum, so it's really sort of putting a bit of pressure on David to defend here.
Yep, and unlike Ira without Zephyr Needles and Retrieve, the arm slot, Ira gets to play with Flick Knives, and that card's really good with Mask of Momentum.
Yep, so actually it's going to buy the big equipment block on the grasp here.
he's blocking for 4, playing around potential Concealed Blade or anything else that adds for 1. And we see the flick right now. And this means the Mask of Momentum is still threatening on the next attack.
Yep, and here we see Needle coming in for 2, just constantly saying, do you want to give me a card? Like, I'm happy if you do.
Yeah, so these Zephyr Needles, Naib is okay with losing these Zephyr Needles in such an aggressive matchup.
Well, it looks like that's a sensor coming in as well. And, you know, as we saw from the actual calling finals at the World Tour Singapore, these can be brutal if you call the right card.
Yeah, so this is threatening Mask because the Zephyr Needle was unblocked.
So 2 cards in hand, no go again here. So you did mention there was okay, so sorry, we're going to see a defend for 3 here with the Earth Law Surge pumped up by the embodiment of Earth. Okay, so no reactions here, just going to go straight to naming the card. What would you call there? It's an interesting one.
Well, your opponent's got 2 cards in hand without embodiment of lightning, so I think David would probably be playing a 0-4 here and then just arsenal a card, or potentially playing just 2-0-4 with go again. I would name either Snatch or Ravenous Rabble.
Okay, so just going to go ahead and pass turn. Okay, Ravenous Rabble comes down. Looked like it revealed a Regrowth Shock, so that's only going to come in for 2. That's a bit of a brutal miss in an aggro mirror.
So that's unfortunate. And
okay, and it looks like the last card in David's hand there was a Snatch. We didn't quite catch what Naib did call on that, but that would have been a pretty sick call if he had the Snatch there. It's going to go ahead and create that embodiment of Earth. And the Snatch comes in for 4.
Yeah, so these embodiment of Earths are very important for the Briar, and probably why Briar is chosen over other aggressive decks, as the embodiment of Earths are really good against other aggressive decks. Being able to defend for 4 while not playing defense reactions.
And we see the fast pace of the game here. Now he's just immediately shoving in that Blood Spatter Fist, saying, I'm not going to give you that 5-card hand next turn. And surprise, surprise, we see his Zephyr Needle coming for 2, so that is going to be broken because of the Earth Law Surge being buffed up by the embodiment of Earth. And straight into a Torrent of Tempo, a card in hand and a card in arsenal. Basically saying to David, hey, if you want to defend this out and end my turn here. But, I mean, if you give him 2 cards, kind of happy?
Well, if you give him 2 cards, that's going to be most likely defending for 6. And Naib has a lot of tricks like Concealed Blade, and that could be pretty disaster in this spot.
Now, you did mention there was a 3rd Zephyr Needle in the inventory previously, and that's sort of for those Concealed Blade plays?
Yeah, nice to have a little bit of a bonus in addition to the +1, and in this case, a 2 power weapon as a bonus.
Oh, and he did have the Concealed Blade, and that gets a Sink Below and a second Sink Below. But, I mean, Jason, I got to ask, I feel Naib's not going to be too disappointed here. He got the Face Purgatory 2 Sink Belows. His opponent only has 1 card in hand.
Yeah, Naib managed to basically use up every single one of the cards in his hand, last one being in the arsenal, and put David in a spot where he only has 1 card to play.
And he knew the last card was Regrowth Shock there because of the Ravenous Rabble reveal.
Yep, and Regrowth Shock can basically be stopped by the Tie Flippers. Naib choosing to play Arcane Barrier against Briar, and a lot of that must be because of Regrowth Shock.
Yeah, probably not super concerned about the rune chance. Maybe a little bit of damage here and there from the Rosetta.
I think this is the only card Naib is interested in preventing arcane damage from.
Yep, and a pretty heads-up play getting rid of that Sink Below here. I really like this because I feel Naib's the aggressor here, right? Like, he's just wanting to go in with damage. I don't care about this 4 defense reaction. Get that out of here. I'm just going to try Needle to use Death.
Well, I think David would have loved to have arsenal that Sink Below and got 4 points of value, but really he only got like 1 point of value, maybe you can argue 3 from stopping that Concealed Blade.
And here we see the first up 6 and run, the up 6 and run coming down, coming in for 6. I mean, good luck breaking this one.
Yeah, so this is just very comparable to any attack action card, and when you up sticks, like you said, the Zephyr Needle, it just can't be broken, and now the second one also most likely can't be broken due to being Ira, except for in this matchup.
Yeah, the Anthem of Spring coming down here to make the embodiment of Earth, so that Everbloom is going to actually crack that Needle. But then we see another sensor coming down, going to be defended out for 4 by that Force of Nature, but now, I mean, in an aggro mirror, I feel like you want to be the beatdown, right?
Yep, so this is the very classic play from Naib, just 4-card hand, presenting, I believe, at 16, 14, and just with Deflect Knives, with some triggers, with some incremental damage, and Naib has not lost the momentum for 3 turns.
Let's see if we can have a look at what Naib's working with here. So, yep, he's got a up sticks, got a Concealed Blade. And going to kick things off with a pick up the point.
Yep, so here's another Concealed Blade.
That's so sick, because it's basically another version of Retrieve, right? You just get to pick up that third needle from the inventory.
Yeah, and this is on an on-hit trigger, so not only does it get you the 7 needle, you got an extra point of value from the pain in the backside. This is at least a 4-point swing.
And no embodiment of Earth, importantly, this time. So the 7 needle's coming for 3, going to be very hard for David to crack.
Yeah, so playing against Briar as Ira, or as any aggro deck, you really want to wait for that turn when your opponent has no embodiment of Earth. So you want to just keep pressuring them, and eventually the Briar is going to struggle to deal damage with an attack action card to you, and that's the moment to strike. And Naib has chosen this turn to basically put the pressure on.
Yep, and a little bit awkward here for David. We see that Snatch coming through as a final chain link, threatening 4 damage and the on-hit.
2 cards.
2 cards. I mean, does have that Grasp of the Arknight. Does he have a 3 block to pair with that? Oh, and this might buy 2 cards. That feels like... It feels like David's kind of hoping Naib's going to brick at some point here.
And this is when Briar's on the back foot. Like I said, it's really hard to get your embodiment of Earth when you're down to 1 card.
Yep, and also neither of those needles have been cracked. So next turn's going to be a 4-card hand with 2 needles just good to go. Flick Knives available. We might see some fireworks.
Yep, and you might think if you don't have any needle, you can't really use the Retrieve. But with the Flick Knives, you can... If you have 2 needles to start with and you have Retrieve, you can basically attack with 3 needles easily.
Yeah, because, I mean, people know Briar is this, like, just dominant aggro deck, really, really strong. But now we're seeing the absolute power of these Zephyr needles. And David quite fairly in the tank here, because you're kind of thinking, I just don't want to give my opponent infinite tempo while I just sit and set up for a turn that might never come.
Yeah, that's it's actually quite unique. We're actually seeing the 2 aggro decks in this format that are traditionally good against other aggro decks. Briar has the benefit of embodiment of Earths, while Ira has the benefit of on-hits. And it's probably no coincidence that the finals was 2 aggro decks that were good against other aggro decks. Like, you saw the metagame, there was a lot of aggro decks out there.
Yep, and no blocks from David here, so Naib's going to go ahead and flick that Zephyr Needle, just, trust in your deck will trust in you. He's going to, can bank on picking up that Retrieve card, gets that card for Arsenal as well. I think David just figured, I've got to put my foot on the gas here. He's going to kick things off with a Skyward Serenade.
And I believe Naib may have actually drawn a defense reaction for his Arsenal. I didn't quite see it, but if so, that's big.
That would be devastating to just perfectly block out the Skizik with a defense reaction.
All right, so now the pressure's on David. It's really important now David gets at least 1 card out of Naib's hand, and really important he gets that embodiment of Earth going into next turn, because now David is on a back foot.
Let's have a look at if we can see what Naib's working with here. Oh, an up 6 and run, a dual threat as well. So is there going to be enough to get the max value of that dual threat on this turn?
Well, Naib just wants to survive this turn with at least 3 cards in hand to just pressure the last 6 total, and he takes the first Skizzit.
So he takes this because it takes the Rosetta Thorn, goes down to 6. I mean, that tells me there's some fireworks coming on this turn. So we're going to kick things off with the up 6 and run. That's going to go ahead and pay 1 to retrieve the needle. And like we say, if there's any attack action to pair up to be able to go, or if you get the full value, the dual threat on both your needle and your attack action, it's going to be huge. So yellow up 6. This one's coming in for 5 here.
And we know a card is very good when someone plays the yellow copy of it, right?
Yeah. I mean, 9 copies of something in a deck can sometimes be a bit of a flag. So again, this one's coming in for 5. Pretty hard to crack even with that embodiment of Earth here.
Yep. David has drawn a hand that has the regrowth shot. Sorry. He does have okay defense value.
But again, like we were saying before, if all you're doing is defending against another aggro deck, I mean, we see the Snapdragon Scalers just sitting there on the field, still unused.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough ask, but ideally David needs to come out of this turn with still some life total and then just play a Snatch or play 1 card that can threaten something from Naib. But Naib's really in the driver's seat right now.
Yeah, one of the things is here, when we see that Mask of Momentum, usually you don't want to defend with that, but at this point in the game, Naib's probably going to be pretty happy just to bin that off to block an on-hit if he needs to at some point.
Yeah, so not only is Naib in the driver's seat, he still has higher defense value than his equipment. So it may be 6-6, but it's Naib's game to lose here.
Yep, so that's going to go ahead and fully defend this out for 5. So a bit of a heads-up play. I like the fact that, you want to try shut off the Mask of Momentum. They probably don't want to Flick Knives your other one. Oh, and a Bittering Thorns comes in for 5 here. That's another breakpoint. That's going to buy 2 cards. Now, does Naib have the second on-attack action to pair up? No, he's going to maybe just hold on to that dual threat. Oh no, pitch it away. Just keep pushing the damage, right?
And this game is really showcasing the power of the Seven Needle. Seven Needle costing the same as Rosetta Form, but having the access to go again and doing much more damage than David's weapon. We see how much pressure these Seven Needles have done for Naib compared to the Rosetta Form, which is, some might say, the best weapon in the game from David. It's just really been outshined by these Seven Needles.
Absolutely, and this Torrent of Tempo coming in for 5, that's going to force the Tunic block as well. So he's going to take 2 damage and a flick here. He's down to 1, and this game is all but over here. Down to 1 life. Flick Knife's still available for on Naib's turn. David with 1 card in hand. And man, I've been seriously impressed by this Needle Ira deck.
Yep, Naib just needs to play an attack, Flick Knives, and that's it.
That gets the fist bump. The upsticks comes down. Naib taking it down with Needle Ira